Stop consuming what you believe are healthy whole grains for breakfast if your blood sugar is running out of control. I fully recognize that this sounds like I am directly contradicting everything your physician has ever advised you, but after 3 decades of practicing medicine, what I have witnessed in both the scientific literature and in my own patients has fundamentally transformed my entire approach to blood sugar management. And in today's video, I am going to reveal what most doctors simply do not have the time to explain during a standard 15-minute office consultation. Here is a statistic that ought to bring you to a complete halt. According to data from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, more than 37 million Americans are living with diabetes and an additional 96 million, which translates to 1 out of every 3 adults have prediabetes. However, here is the part that genuinely disturbs me on a deep level. The CDC estimates that over 80% of individuals with prediabetes are completely unaware of their condition. They are going about their daily lives consuming foods they genuinely believe are wholesome and nourishing, all while watching their energy levels plummet, their vision grow increasingly blurred, their feet develop troubling numbness, and no one has ever explained to them why this is happening. Today, we are going to count down the 6 most powerful foods ranked from highly beneficial to genuinely extraordinary that clinical research demonstrates can reduce blood sugar rapidly and maintain that stability over the long haul. And I promise you this, by the time we reach number 1, you are going to be genuinely astonished. The vast majority of people have never made any connection between this particular food and blood sugar regulation at all. It is currently sitting in your kitchen as we speak, and you have probably been discarding the most valuable portion of it without a second thought. But before we dive into the details, I want to ask you something personal. Take a moment to leave a comment below and share your age and whether you have ever been told that your blood sugar is elevated or that your A1C is gradually creeping upward. I personally read every single comment on this channel, every last one, and your individual story genuinely matters to me. The conversations that unfold in the comment section of this channel have directly shaped the topics we choose to cover. And today's video came about specifically because of questions that many of you have been asking consistently for months. Now, let us jump into the list, beginning with number 6. Number 6 is apple cider vinegar. And before you roll your eyes and dismiss this as old-fashioned folk remedy, allow me to show you what the actual peer-reviewed science has to say. A landmark investigation published in the journal Diabetes Care, which is widely recognized as one of the most respected peer-reviewed publications in the entire field of metabolic medicine, found that consuming 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar prior to a high carbohydrate meal reduced post-meal blood sugar levels by nearly 34% in individuals with insulin resistance. That is not a minor, insignificant figure. That represents the kind of reduction that some prescription medications struggle to achieve. Here is the explanation for why it works and why it works especially effectively for people over the age of 60. The active compound present in apple cider vinegar is acetic acid. Think of acetic acid as a traffic controller positioned at the entrance of a busy glucose superhighway. It slows down the rate at which your stomach releases its contents into the small intestine, which means that the sugar derived from your meal enters your bloodstream more gradually. Instead of a sudden flood, you receive a steady, manageable stream. For aging bodies in particular, this matters enormously because after the age of 65, the beta cells in your pancreas, which are the cells responsible for producing insulin, begin to function with decreasing efficiency. Research published by the American Diabetes Association indicates that beta cell mass and function can decline by as much as 40% in older adults with type 2 diabetes. When your insulin response is already operating at a slower pace, the absolute last thing you want is a massive sugar spike hitting your bloodstream all at once. I had a patient, Margaret, 71 years old, a retired school teacher from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. When she first came to see me, her fasting blood sugar was consistently above 160, and she was genuinely terrified of having to start taking medication. I suggested she try consuming 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar diluted in a large glass of water approximately 20 minutes before her 2 largest meals of the day. Within just 6 weeks, her fasting glucose had dropped to 118. She told me it was the first dietary adjustment she had ever made that she could actually feel working in her body. The practical preparation is straightforward. Always dilute it thoroughly. Never consume it straight because the acidity can erode tooth enamel and irritate your esophagus. Mix 2 tablespoons in 8 to 12 ounces of water. For an enhanced effect, pair it with a small amount of cinnamon, which brings us to synergy. Research from the Journal of the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics demonstrates that combining acetic acid with cinnamon's active compound, cinnamaldehyde, creates a compounding effect on insulin sensitivity that is greater than the sum of either substance alone. Number 5 is fatty fish, specifically wild-caught salmon, mackerel, and sardines. And the vast majority of people remain completely unaware of just how powerfully these foods influence blood sugar regulation. We tend to categorize fish as a heart food, a protein source. However, the omega-3 fatty acids present in fatty fish, EPA, which stands for eicosapentaenoic acid, and DHA, which stands for docosahexaenoic acid, accomplish something truly remarkable inside your cells. They reduce the chronic low-grade inflammation that is frankly one of the most underappreciated drivers of insulin resistance in older adults. Here is the connection that most physicians fail to explain clearly. Inflammation does not merely cause your joints to ache. Chronic inflammation directly interferes with insulin signaling at the cellular level. When inflammatory cytokines, which are small signaling proteins, are circulating in elevated amounts, they essentially jam the lock that insulin relies on to open cells and allow glucose to enter. A study from the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health, which tracked over 90,000 participants, discovered that regular consumption of omega-3 rich fish was associated with a 24% lower risk of developing type 2 diabetes compared to those who rarely ate fish. After the age of 70, the body's capacity to manage inflammation becomes significantly compromised. The mitochondria, which you can think of as the tiny power plants operating inside each of your cells, become less efficient with advancing age. They produce more oxidative waste, and this feeds directly into the inflammatory cycle. Omega-3 fatty acids help calm this process at its very source. Aim to eat fatty fish at least 3 times per week. A 4 to 6 ounce serving is considered ideal. Baking or poaching is preferable to frying, which introduces inflammatory omega-6 fats that directly counteract the benefit you are attempting to achieve. For synergy, consume your salmon alongside a generous serving of leafy greens dressed with olive oil. The fat-soluble nutrients present in the greens are absorbed far more efficiently when accompanied by the healthy fats found in the fish. And olive oil itself contributes additional anti-inflammatory polyphenols that further support metabolic health. Number 4 is a food that has been criminally misrepresented for decades: eggs. Specifically, whole eggs, including the yolk. For years, seniors were advised to avoid egg yolks due to concerns about cholesterol. However, a comprehensive review published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, which analyzed data from over a dozen randomized controlled trials, concluded that whole egg consumption did not adversely affect cardiovascular risk markers in healthy individuals. And even more relevant to our conversation today, research from the University of Connecticut showed that people who ate whole eggs for breakfast experienced significantly better blood sugar control throughout the morning compared to those who consumed a carbohydrate-based breakfast of equivalent caloric value. Why does this matter so profoundly for older adults? It comes back to something called anabolic resistance. After the age of 65, your muscles become increasingly resistant to the signals that would normally trigger protein synthesis and muscle growth. This is critical to blood sugar regulation because muscle tissue serves as the primary site of glucose disposal in the body. When you possess more functional muscle mass, your body has more places to deposit the glucose that is circulating in your bloodstream. Whole eggs provide a complete amino acid profile, all 9 essential amino acids in highly bioavailable form, which supports muscle protein synthesis even in aging bodies grappling with anabolic resistance. Aim for 2 to 3 whole eggs at breakfast, prepared without excessive added fat. The synergy pairing here is turmeric. Adding a quarter teaspoon of turmeric to your scrambled eggs provides curcumin, a compound that has been extensively studied at the National Institutes of Health for its ability to improve insulin sensitivity by activating AMPK, a cellular enzyme that functions like a metabolic master switch, helping your body utilize glucose more efficiently. The black pepper sitting in your shaker is not just there for flavor. Adding a pinch increases curcumin absorption by up to 2,000%, according to research from Baylor University Medical Center. Now, before we proceed to the top 3, the ones that can produce the most dramatic difference. Number 3 is one of the most extensively studied foods in the entire field of metabolic medicine, and yet it remains chronically underutilized by the very people who stand to benefit from it the most. Berries, specifically blueberries, blackberries, and strawberries, all of which have been the subject of serious, rigorous clinical investigation. Researchers at the University of Michigan published a study demonstrating that blueberry bioactives, a category of compounds that includes anthocyanins, the pigments responsible for the deep color of berries, improved insulin sensitivity by 22% over a 6-week period in obese, non-diabetic adults with high fasting insulin levels. The researchers specifically noted that these effects were comparable in magnitude to certain pharmaceutical interventions. Let me repeat that. Comparable to medication achieved through food alone. The mechanism is elegant in its simplicity. Anthocyanins act as powerful antioxidants that protect the beta cells of the pancreas from oxidative damage. Remember those beta cells I mentioned earlier? The ones that produce insulin and decline with age? Berries help preserve them. They also improve the function of something called GUT4 transporters. GUT4 is essentially a glucose doorway built into your muscle cells. When insulin signals the body to clear glucose from the blood, GLUT4 transporters move to the surface of muscle cells and open up to allow glucose to enter. In insulin-resistant individuals, this signaling process is impaired. Anthocyanins help restore GLUT4 function. For seniors specifically, berries offer an additional advantage. They're relatively low glycemic index. Blueberries score around 53 on the glycemic index scale, means they satisfy a sweet craving without triggering the glucose spike associated with other sweet foods. 1 cup of mixed berries per day is the research-supported dose. Frozen berries are equally effective as fresh. The freezing process does not destroy anthocyanins, making this accessible and affordable all year round. The synergy pairing for berries is Greek yogurt, specifically full-fat plain Greek yogurt with no added sugar. The protein and fat in the yogurt further blunt the glycemic response, and the probiotic cultures in the yogurt independently support insulin sensitivity through the gut microbiome. A study from King's College London found that participants with a more diverse gut microbiome had significantly better blood glucose regulation after meals. Berries plus Greek yogurt is one of the most complete metabolic breakfast options that nutrition science has identified. I think of Robert, 74, a retired electrician from Tulsa, Oklahoma, who came to me feeling frustrated and exhausted. He had been managing prediabetes for 3 years with only modest dietary changes. His A1C sat stubbornly at 6.1. He started eating a cup of mixed berries with full-fat Greek yogurt every morning and made no other changes. 4 months later, his A1C was 5.7. His primary care physician was so surprised that she called him to double check that he had not started any new medications. He had not. Number 2, this is where I need you to lean in, because what I am about to share with you is one of the most significant and most overlooked insights in modern diabetes nutrition research. The food is avocado. I can hear some of you thinking, avocado for blood sugar? That is a fat food. Exactly right. It is a fat food, and that is precisely why it works so effectively. Here is what a remarkable study from Penn State University discovered. When participants consumed one avocado per day as part of their regular diet for 12 weeks, they exhibited significant reductions in fasting insulin, along with meaningful improvements in insulin sensitivity and a reduction in belly fat, specifically the visceral fat that wraps around internal organs and is one of the most potent drivers of insulin resistance in the human body. The visceral fat reduction was 6 times greater in the avocado group than in the control group consuming equivalent calories without avocado. The reason avocado is so powerful for older adults specifically comes down to 3 intersecting mechanisms. First, the monounsaturated fats, oleic acid in particular, directly improve the fluidity and responsiveness of cell membranes, making insulin receptors more sensitive. Think of insulin receptors like a rusty lock. Monounsaturated fats essentially oil that lock, making it easier for insulin to turn the key and open the cell to glucose. Second, avocado is extraordinarily rich in potassium, more per gram than a banana, contrary to popular belief. And potassium plays a direct regulatory role in insulin secretion from the pancreas. Third, avocado contains a unique compound called avocatin B, which researchers at the University of Guelph in Canada identified as capable of inhibiting incomplete oxidation in skeletal muscle, a cellular process strongly linked to insulin resistance. After the age of 75, the body's ability to regulate intracellular fat metabolism declines by an estimated 35%, making the visceral fat problem progressively worse with each passing year. Avocado directly addresses this deterioration. Half to one whole avocado per day is the study dose. Eat it at lunch if possible, when your insulin sensitivity is at its daily peak. Slice it over eggs, spread it on grain-free toast, or eat it simply with a squeeze of lemon. The synergy tip here is tomatoes. Tomatoes are rich in lycopene, and a study published in Nutrition Reviews confirmed that pairing lycopene-rich foods with fat-containing foods dramatically increases lycopene absorption, and lycopene itself has been independently associated with reduced inflammatory markers that contribute to insulin resistance. Classic guacamole, as it turns out, is almost scientifically perfect. Dorothy was 68 years old, a grandmother of 7 from Scottsdale, Arizona, when she came to see me. She had been eating what she thought was a heart-healthy, low-fat diet for a decade. Her blood sugar was worsening every single year despite her best efforts. She was desperate and frightened. When I explained the role of quality fats in insulin sensitivity, she was skeptical but willing to try. She added half an avocado to her lunch every day. Within 3 months, her fasting blood sugar had dropped from 142 to 109. She told me she felt more energetic than she had in 5 years. She also mentioned with some embarrassment that she had been walking past the avocados in the grocery store bin for years because she thought they were too fatty. That moment breaks my heart a little because it represents a failure of medical communication that affects millions of people. And now, number one, the single most powerful, most scientifically validated, most surprising food on this entire list. And I told you at the beginning, this is something sitting in your kitchen right now, and you have likely been discarding the most important part of it. The food is the onion, specifically raw onion, and more specifically, the outer layers and the papery skin that almost everyone peels away and throws in the trash. Let me share what the research says because this genuinely astonished me when I first encountered it. A study published in the journal Evidence-Based Complementary and Alternative Medicine found that consuming 100 grams, roughly half a medium onion, of fresh raw onion per day reduced fasting blood sugar levels by an average of 89 milligrams per deciliter in participants with type 1 diabetes and by 40 milligrams per deciliter in those with type 2 diabetes. Those are numbers that rival some pharmaceutical interventions. Separate research from the University of Southern Queensland found that onion extract concentrated from the skin and outer layers that people typically discard inhibited DPP4, an enzyme that breaks down GLP-1, which is one of your body's most important natural blood sugar regulating hormones. You may have heard of GLP-1. It is the very hormone that the blockbuster diabetes drugs like semaglutide are designed to mimic. Onion skin does this naturally. The active compounds responsible are quercetin and sulfur compounds, specifically S-methylcysteine sulfoxide, which has been shown in animal and early human studies to stimulate insulin secretion directly and improve glucose uptake in muscle and liver tissue. Quercetin is also one of the most potent natural inhibitors of alpha glucosidase, the enzyme in your small intestine that breaks complex carbohydrates down into glucose. When you slow alpha glucosidase, you slow the rate at which dietary carbohydrates become blood glucose. And this is the exact mechanism of action of the diabetes medication acarbose. For aging bodies, this is particularly profound. After 65, the gut lining becomes more permeable and carbohydrate digestion becomes less regulated, leading to more dramatic post-meal glucose spikes. Quercetin acts directly at the site of carbohydrate breakdown in the intestine, intercepting the glucose before it ever enters your bloodstream in a surge. Here is the critical practical point. The quercetin content of the outer 2 to 3 dry layers of an onion is dramatically higher than the inner flesh. This is the part you have been discarding. You can steep these papery outer layers in boiling water for 10 minutes to make an onion skin tea. This is consumed regularly as a medicinal preparation in parts of Eastern Europe and South Korea, where rates of type 2 diabetes are historically lower than in the United States. 2 cups of this tea per day provides a meaningful therapeutic dose of quercetin. Alternatively, use the skins in homemade broths and soups, letting them steep through the entire cooking process before straining. For the onion flesh itself, eat it raw whenever possible. Cooking reduces quercetin content by up to 30%. Add raw sliced red onion, which has the highest quercetin concentration of any onion variety, to salads, sandwiches, or alongside your eggs in the morning. The synergy pairing is olive oil. Research from the journal Food Chemistry confirmed that olive oil's polyphenols act synergistically with quercetin to enhance its bioavailability. And olive oil independently reduces the glycemic index of any meal it accompanies by slowing gastric emptying, just as apple cider vinegar does. Aim to eat half a raw red onion per day. Save and steep the skins. Make this a habit, not an experiment. I need you to hear something now, and I mean it with complete sincerity. The people watching this video are individuals in their 60s, 70s, and 80s who are not ready to surrender. You are not looking for someone to tell you to simply accept this diagnosis and take more pills. You are looking for the truth, the evidence, and the practical steps that give you back control. And that is exactly what nutrition science offers when it is communicated honestly and transparently. I have watched patients in their late 70s reverse insulin resistance that their doctors told them was permanent and irreversible. I have watched people in their 80s reduce their A1C from diabetic to normal range through nothing but consistent, targeted nutritional changes. I have watched men and women who had quietly begun to lose hope discover that their bodies still respond, that biology is not destiny, and that the years ahead of them can be years of energy, clarity, and genuine vitality rather than gradual diminishment. It is genuinely never too late. The research is unambiguous on this point. Metabolic function responds to nutritional intervention at every age. Your independence, your ability to live in your own home, to travel, to hold your grandchildren and keep up with them, to wake up in the morning without dread, all of it is connected to how you manage your blood sugar. And every one of these 6 foods gives you a real evidence-based tool to do exactly that. The full scientific references for every study mentioned in this video are linked in the description below. I encourage you to read them, share them with your doctor, and make informed decisions in partnership with your medical team. Nothing in this video is a substitute for personalized medical advice, but this information is real. It is documented, and you deserve to have it. If this video helped you today, please subscribe to this channel right now and hit the bell so you never miss a new video. We are here every week with research-backed content designed specifically for people who refuse to accept that aging means surrendering their health. and leave me a comment. Tell me your age. Tell me which of these 6 foods surprised you the most, and tell me whether you have ever tried onion skin tea. I read every comment, every single one. I will see you in the next video.